This is kind of just basic. So convolutional neural network, CNN. Here we have an artificial neural network, which was originally modeled off of mathematically the human brain. And so if you think of these points as neurons in the brain and these lines that connect them as the synapses, well, these points are just points of data. When it makes these connections, it's essentially like having ideas. So imagine you put this image unlabeled of a bird, and it puts this data into the machine, and it goes through this hidden layer, which we'll talk more about later. And the output is, well, it's likely that it's an animal. It can like kind of deduce the potential the potential label, right? And then it will use statistics to determine which one is more probable. Well, if it has a bunch of data of images of birds that are labeled bird, it will be able to do much more easier that I can see the patterns of the shape or the hex code. We'll talk more about that later, of a bird. And it will be able to tell like, hey, this is likely a bird. And it's gotten really good at this. And we'll talk more about how the more examples you have or the more labeled data that you have, the more accurate the output will be. And then, so this was, I don't know what that is. Sorry, just going to clear this really quick. I think I have too much happening. So then we were able to discover or figure out how to go the opposite direction. So instead of starting with the image, now we have so many images that have been labeled by AI that it's a bird. Now, if I type the word bird, it can figure out how to generate an image of a bird. And again, this is based off of statistics and patterns. But yes, this is called backpropagation from text to image. Sorry. So what's really cool or scary, I'm not sure yet, I think it's very cool, is that we were able to figure out how to create images to be labeled. And then we figured out how to turn labels into images. And now we can figure out how to create images out of our thoughts. So they found that with an fMRI, they were able to generate images of what the person is seeing. So there's visual stimulus, and it generates the image, and it's pretty good. I think this was from like a year ago, so I'm sure it's much better now. Yeah, so imagine, theoretically, you could dream, and when you wake up, you have this roll of footage that was generated from your dreams that you can use somehow. Whether you share it, you use it as your inspiration for your projects, or even as you're talking to your client, for example, or general, anyone. You can be thinking what your idea is for a project or a design and immediately project that idea. Instead of going through all of this time of generating just the right image of what I'm thinking about, can I prompt it right? You can just think it. And that's incredibly powerful, of course. And I think it's super important to think about, because how powerful our thoughts will be. So a big part of prompting, what you type in or speak or, whatever you input into an AI shows intention. And the clearer you can be about your intention, the better you'll be at prompting. The better and closer you'll get an output to what you want, right? And so I think it's really important that we have good thoughts, right? And that they're conducive to society. But yeah, so that we feed a healthy visual stimulus. So I just say this because a lot of people, have these scary sci-fi ideas about AI in the future. Well, you can create that future you're kind of stuck on it as well. Or you can create the opposite. If you kind of more hopeful and you see a possibility for a world that is productive and healthy, you can generate productive and healthy worlds. So this is far into the future. Well, it's happening now, but as far as accessibility goes, it is far into the future, but I think it's really good to think about so we can get our minds right before we have this power. So now let's talk about the diffusion model. So a diffusion model, it essentially starts off as a noisy image. It's just a bunch of random pixels. And based off of your prompt, it tries to find your prompt in the noise. It finds patterns, creates patterns, and tries to find the noise. I have like a really good example of that could be interesting. I'll put it in the newsletter. It's a music video that was used diffusion model to create some really cool scenes, but essentially it just tried to find patterns of dogs actually in what it was seeing. And a lot of times it didn't make sense. It was just like there needed to be some sort of noise for the patterns to grab onto to generate the visual. Nonetheless, it starts off as a noisy image, tries to find the patterns, and does this about 100 times until it gets to the final image that you see. If you use these more technical AI image generators, you get to see that process. If you use Midjourney and Discord, you get to see it diffuse, which is really cool. And you can even stop it wherever you want, which is neat. Like you can say, oh, I only want it to do 50 not the full 100. So it's just like an interesting form of art you could play with. So what do I mean by noise? These pixels. It's kind of like the old TVs when you would turn them on and there was all of that static. It starts that exact way. Those are called hex codes. I think my next slide explains it. And then a clean image is this like fully developed image. And the word clean is used a lot with tech and data. Because now this is usable. Like you can clean data. Clean data is data I can use really well and efficiently, and I don't need to alter anything to get it right. It communicates the idea fully that this is a cat. It's a clean image. And I keep clicking. So, yes, so noise. So there are pixels in a certain order. They're called hex codes here. You can see, so you have an image and there are these numbers assigned to it. So if you zoomed in, you would see all of these numbers. You can find these tools online, so you can create your own. I think I have one attached. Yes. So I could upload an image and it will show me the hex code. So I'm going to do that. Bear with me while I grab an image. Okay, I'll use this image. Okay, this image I generated for this workshop, one of the images. So it's processing. So yes, this is the hex code output for, it's a big image with a lot going on. So I could copy it, manipulate it, embed it. I could do a lot of things here, but it's a hex code. So it's similar to if you're in graphic design or if you use color coding. So RBJ. I'm going blank right now. It has that number of like how much red, how much blue, and how much green. RBG is in it, and it has that assigned number. And it just takes that one pixel with that one color, right? And then you zoom out and it creates the image. It works the same way. Okay. So, and that's just to say because people like, AI is very much modeled after human intelligence and how our brain works and all of that, right? In theory, mathematically, but it actually doesn't, it's not really understanding or experiencing how you're interacting with it in the way you are, right? So it's generating this really cool image, but it's just numbers for it. Really interpret it the way we do. We're the ones that are enforcing our labels onto it, right? So we're experiencing it one way. On its end, it's just a bunch of numbers. It's like a calculator. So we absolutely control what it generates is my point. So with generative adversarial networks, GANs, we can see it starts with that random noise. It goes through a generator that generates the fake image, but it does this with a data set the training set of real images. And then there's a discriminator that discriminates, does this look real enough like my training? And we decide actually if it's real or fake. If we keep the photo or if we keep enhancing it or developing it, we're investing further in those pathways, those patterns. We're rewarding AI to generate more. And so we'll get into ethics later, but yeah, what is AI trained on? And is it outdated? Those are good questions. But yeah, like there's a lot here. So this is why it's important that we engage with it. I've met a lot of people that are afraid of AI, and I totally understand, and are kind of taking the back seat. I don't think anyone here is, because you're in this call, but and you're interested in the topic. But my point is the more you engage with it, the more it develops around your values. And so I think it's really important from like a grassroots level that we all engage with it, especially the designers, the ones that want to create the future for humanity, engages with it, and that it's not just limited to tech companies or governments or things like big businesses, but that we have a huge say in how it develops. As you engage with it, you develop it. You can also create your own model. Hopefully you're not hearing this noise and the AI is working, but you can create your own model. Like someone was saying, asking about Comfy U earlier, you can create a model that just exists on your hardware that isn't shared with the public, because a lot of these AI image generators they collect the data, and that's how they fund this technology and sometimes profit. But you can use these open source models that you can download on your hardware that aren't connected to the internet, and you can develop those models specifically just on your projects. This is, I think, essential for any architecture firm that is embracing technology, is that they would develop their own model trained on their past projects that they like, their portfolio, and even research and things like that for the type of work that they want to be doing. If you wrote a book on your ethos and design, things like that, these are all things you could train your model on. And then it would generate more of that, which is super cool. Especially it can help you understand what your style is, how you can refine it, or explore a little bit more. So what I'm saying is that you can hone your own model, or if you engage with it publicly, like online, you will help fine tune AI models that are used publicly. So you would influence what other people see as well.